All right, so I want to welcome everybody to this webinar, this online session, where the focus is the potential journey going from onboarding version 1 and then migrating or thinking about migrating to onboarding version 2. So let's get into it. We have a few introductory slides. I don't want to go into too much detail with these, but this is just about GP Strategies as a company. We are worldwide. We are located in all these various countries and places, as you can see here. And we do have experts and consultants posted in these different locations throughout the world. So let's go on to the actual content of this. So just want to let everybody know that that's not true. I'll just let him talk through this. Thank you so much. So that was obviously the wrong speak. Let me just introduce myself. So my name is Anders Molsner. I'm not Eric Ebert. So Eric has been so kind to lend me his GoToMeeting access for conducting this webinar today. My name is Anders Molsner. I'm the senior lead consultant for the onboarding track with GP Strategies here in the Nordics. Shoot, why does it keep doing this? Anyway, right. So I am heading up the track for onboarding. I am a professional certified onboarding version 1 consultant and obviously certified in the new version as well. I've been with the business for 7 years now and been leading up, most of the projects that we have been participating in on the onboarding side. Struggling a little bit with this type of presentation here. Sorry about that. Been heading up most of the tracks for different various clients worldwide in the past 3-4 years for this. So venturing into to onboarding 2, and really excited about this. I am also heading up our track team, so I'm covering off the whole of recruitment and onboarding for that. Let's see if I can get this slide deck to behave the way I want it to behave. All right, that out of the way, let's get into business with the actual module here. So onboarding, I gather that, since the headline for this session is going from 1 to 2, most of you guys would already know what onboarding is and what it can do for you. But I just want to highlight a few things about the new version of onboarding first, and then we'll go into more of the differences and things to think about and look out for, and what you'll get with the new version of onboarding in the future. So this new version of onboarding, that is really the plan is for us to do or to lift the tool to a new level. So we are looking at getting this into the life cycle of getting into the business part of the process, so the hire process. So starting off in recruitment, going into onboarding, and then going on to other modules on the other side. So going into a HRIS system on the other side, but creating and focusing on the user experience side of things rather than on the functional side of things. That is like the vision for onboarding going forward. So onboarding sometimes is a bit, well, the concept of onboarding and the naming of the module sometimes is conceived a bit wrong, or it doesn't really match people's expectations once we then get around to actually talking about what is onboarding and what part of the process is onboarding handling for the clients. So what it does for you and what it takes care of is more of the clients that I've worked with anyway, refer to as pre-boarding. So pre-boarding being the time frame of an employee's way into work that happens after recruitment, usually after either a contract or a letter, an approval letter, approval offer has been signed and sent back. So everybody is in consensus of, this person is about to start with the business. So everything that happens after that point in time onwards, up until the first day of work, that is potentially and mainly what the onboarding module is set in place to handle. So what you see on the screen here, that's the new process outline. That's actually a screenshot from the system. So this is an overview that you get in the system, in a new place of the system called the Process Variant Manager, where you can define your processes, not completely as you want them to be, but there's a few limitations and things has dependencies. But this is kind of the full outline of the different steps and parts that the process can contain at this point. So from the beginning, I just run you through this really quickly before we then get into some of the other bits and pieces. So from the beginning, we start the process in recruitment. So we start in recruitment by initiating onboarding, or we start the onboarding process in another applicant tracking system, which is also an option at this point in time. So we do offer like API integration to the module at this point as well. So you can initiate the process from a recruiting setup. So that might be SuccessFactors recruiting or another applicant tracking system. That's where we start. Then the system does a check of the data that will come through from recruiting into onboarding. If anything seems to be a mismatch or something is missing that's been deemed as being required for the hire in Employee Central and /onboarding, then you'll get into this step, review new hire data. So you get through that, review all the data that's potentially coming in from recruitment, filling in the blanks or correcting the data that's there. Then we have the personal data collection piece and the create new hire tasks. These two things will be created at the same time. So these will then run in parallel. So the image should maybe have shown that this is actually spanning, the rest of the process as well. So the new hire tasks, they live on even beyond the finalization of the actual process up here. So capturing the personal data, next step in the process, that's the new hire, the onboardee, coming into the business, filling in even more data that we need, and potential data that we haven't been able to ask for previously. Then we can choose to add onboarding, additional onboarding pieces of information here. So we can build custom objects that can hold different pieces of information that then is stored with the user profile for the purpose of, that could be different things. It can be things that we don't per se want as part of the core HR data that we then hold on the profile in Employee Central or similar systems. So something that is purely needed for onboarding purposes. And then right at the end, we have the document flow, which is referring to anything that needs to be served up to the onboardee, the new hire coming in. Legal required documents, it can be things that they need to sign for before they actually have their first day at the workplace. So that's kind of the standard process. And then this can be defined in different variations. And that is like a thing that we can do now in the directly in the tool. Highlighting a few of the apparent differences between the new version and the old version is that we have a new type dashboard. So everything now sits in Employee Central, which means that you have a different design. You have a design that you or the users will be used to from Employee Central and the rest of the system. So it's Fiori based, it's Fiori designed. So it will look exactly like anything else that you would experience in the rest of this HR system in SuccessFactors. So this is showing you an overview of different people on the way into the business, and they are sitting in various parts of the process. So we have a few that's sitting with the review new hire data step. So that could be started from here. Then we can go into the process of actually doing that, or we can set up and fill in information and different things regarding these tasks that I'll revert to later on in the presentation. That's specific for each of the new hires coming in. That is the new version of the dashboard. And then just to refresh anybody's memories, so this is the old one. It doesn't really show that much information in that one screen. So information-wise, the new one kind of lays out the information in a much better way, I think. And you have a better overview of where's people actually sitting in the process, what needs to be done, is there anything we need to act on, and all of that. Next up, we have a preview. Again, to most people, this will look and feel familiar. So this is a snapshot from the system. This is the review data step. So this is the screen that will look like and does look like the new hire wizard in EC, because it's actually the same. So it's built off of the same technology, and it uses also the same data structure and the same way of rendering on screen. And again, to compare, I can just show you a panel. So this is a panel from the old version of onboarding. So again, a vast improvement, and also along the lines of aligning look and feel, and what can you do with the screens and things to what people will experience once they become part of the business and get into using the core HR system. So they will be acquainted with those types of screens and the way that things are looking and the way that things are working already from the beginning. So for the new hire, what would this journey or this way into the system look like? So we're now using the homepage in onboarding tool. We did also use the homepage for the old version of onboarding. If you turned on the pre-day one access feature, and so that would be somewhat the same. So not a huge difference here, though we do have more to-do tiles guiding you through the different steps that you need to do to complete your process of the onboarding. So this has been improved as well. So just a few things, a few comments or a few bullets on the new hire experience. So what you don't want to do, or what you want to do, is that you want to obviously set things up to prepare people for their first day of work. Things that you present them with on that homepage needs to be relevant. So don't over communicate, don't make things too complex, and don't, put a lot of things into the process, even though it might be an option. Think about what needs to be done when you plan out your process. So things that you don't need to actually do up front, but can be done either on first day of work or right after, during the first days, the first week, the first 2 weeks. Consider maybe doing that in other parts of the system that's better suited for that purpose. Yeah. Keep everything relevant there. Don't over communicate. And then try to put yourself in the shoes of the new hire. Right. So we want to have people be able to go through the system and go through the actual process with the least amount of hiccups and bumps on the way. So it needs to be as intuitive and easy as we can make it for them. But obviously, we still have like a minimum of information that we would like, because we need things for potential other systems. We need things to be able to set up accesses. We need information from them. So we know that they have the right to work, where they're starting to work. All of these different things we do need and we do like. But again, always just think about, is it actually a requirement to have it up front? Or is it something that could potentially wait until we have the first day of work, or within the first few days of work, for them to bring that on to site and then present that at the workplace? So everything is a balance, and obviously most things would, or a lot of times we kind of end up in a situation where we try to cram a lot of stuff into the process because the system can do it, but still just need to look out for the actual end user of the system. This is the new hire's way into your business. So it's important to keep that in mind and look out for the communication going from the system and what you ask of people before they actually start working with you. Right, so a few comparisons, just a few highlights, things that I think is worth mentioning when thinking about, so should we move ahead with the new product? So onboarding to tasks and programs versus onboarding manager activities. So I'm sure that most of you, as you should be familiar with the first version of onboarding, we had the new hire manager activities there, where you could set up this set of activities that would be assigned to the hiring manager to complete, fill in, that would then give information to the new hire coming into the business. Much as we see with the new version, we set up a program, we populate the program with tasks. The new thing that we can do is, obviously we have a vast difference in look and feel, but the best new feature of this program, in my opinion, is the fact that we can now assign different tasks to different groups of people. So we can go into this next point on the slide that says responsible groups versus reassignment, right? So if we are thinking about the tasks, many a time I've been asked, so how can we make sure that the hiring manager will do the first 4 of these and the checklist, and then we have an HR person or we have somebody else that needs to take over, then do some of the other bits. Then we would like to have it go back potentially to the hiring manager or to a third person or something like that. And in practice, it was not entirely impossible to do an onboarding one, but it took some trickery and some workarounds, and it was not the best experience. And usually that potentially went wrong. With the new version of onboarding, we now have the concept of these responsible groups, meaning we can define all these different groups of people that potentially will be responsible for acting and processing one or more of the tasks that's part of the onboarding program. and thus the system will then take care of notifying and assigning these tasks to the relevant people of these new hires coming into the business. So that's, for me, that's a big win with the new version of onboarding, and something that's been long awaited, I think, by many clients out there. Yeah, then we have, it's maybe more a technical thing. So I don't know how many techie guys or admins are on the call, but now we have a whole concept. We have a whole type of user in the system come in with this new version of onboarding, external onboarding users. And I'm holding this up against a setting that we could use with the pre-day one functionality called is onboarding user, meaning that was a flag that kind of told the system, yes, this guy coming into the homepage and getting access to the actual HR's core system of the business is coming in from onboarding, meaning we need to restrict access. A huge difference here is, well, you have like a visual type user now that where it's really easy to see and distinguish between an external onboarding user and the rest of the population when you set up role-based permissions and user groups and who's responsible for who and all these different things. So that's really neat and a very nice addition to the product. The next point ties to the previous one and is actually something that's been a huge pain point for many clients as well. So it's what happens on the first day of work. Up until the first day of work, users that's come in from onboarding, they would have needed to log onto the system using a password, meaning that because they don't have, your company access through Active Directory and all of that set up yet, because all of the bits and pieces would be missing in the background there. And they will still need access to be able to do the paperwork and do the signing of documents and all of that. So they need password access. That's the same today, or with the new version of onboarding. Still get password access as standard, but now we do actually have a background job that is working and automatically converting these pre-day one users to become full EC users when we get to their start date. So that's all taken care of by the system. It was something that was meant to work with the old version of onboarding, but they kind of just never got around to actually creating and dispatching a working solution for that. So it's been a known pain point for onboarding one for quite some time, because the pre-day one concept was marketed as, this is something that we want to use because we want people to get as much information and be in the system at the earliest possible stage. But it was a manual, or we needed to create some trickery workarounds using integrations and conversion of data and all that kind of thing to make that work. So much easier these days, and going forward, we simply just have this background job that needs to be set up to handle this. Then we have the dashboard. We just had a look at that. Again, I think information-wise, it's much better. You have easier access to all the different things that you're responsible for doing. You also have access to, from the dashboard, if you are in a position where you need to oversee the onboarding process, then you can actually go in and through the dashboard get access to a specific user that may be stalled in the process or the likes. Go in through the dashboard, access the user, have a look and see where's the process stalled, why is nothing happening, and then you can go in and nudge, as it's called in the new system here, so you can nudge the one responsible for the task to get in the system and actually do what they're supposed to do. Or again, if you have permission to do it, you can take over and actually do the task on their behalf. So again, that's what I see as a vast improvement of the system there. kind of distributing the responsibility and having more visibility into that part. Then we're using the concept of role-based permissions versus the permission groups in onboarding. So no more permissions, sync, users, sync, mix up, mess up is going on. So we build everything directly in role-based permissions and role-based permission groups now. So all of that is based off of the Employee Central concept. And that is like, again, huge improvement. It's much more clear. It's easier to govern. And it takes us away from this whole concept of having like a dual set of permissions that needs to be maintained in separate places. In onboarding, we use the document management part of Employee Central, or platform. Not Employee Central, it's more platform foundation actually. So everything, all the documents that we provide to the new hires coming in, and anything that we allow them to upload through the process, that will be stored in the document management part of the system, meaning that everything that we have here, that will sit in the same spot as anything uploaded to a background section on the employee profile or Employee Central part of the system. Yeah. So that kind of centralizes things, and it's something that we've heard over and over again doing projects with the old version of onboarding. So where does these does that document go after the process is done? Well, it's stuck in Document Center if you don't do anything actively with it. So if you don't like set up an integration to move it somewhere, or you have a manual process where you go in and fetch the documents and move it somewhere, it's stuck and it's just sitting in Document Center. Yes, you can go in, you can find it again, and you can use the information. So so yeah.
Jeg vil gerne lige se jeres rejsedokumenter. Jo, hvis I lige kommer med jeres rejsedokumenter, så ser vi på det.
Hi, can you guys go on mute? Hello, if you're talking, can you go on mute, please?
Good, thanks. Yeah, I was looking for the mute all button, but I failed to find it. Sorry about that. I'm sure it's there somewhere. Good, so lastly on this slide, we have the recruit to hire mapping versus the whole data mapping thing. So we are moving away from actually having multiple mapping touch points, because we have moved the module has been moved from sitting kind of on the outside of the system and integration and being integrated to the rest of the suite, to become more native part of the actual suite. So it's sitting in the same spot as EC and Foundation now, which means that the mapping from onboarding to EC has gone, because the only mapping we now need is from recruitment to onboarding. So we're down to just having to set up one piece of mapping, or one touch point with the mapping, which is really nice and takes away a lot of headache with having different types of data flowing through in different parts of the system, and all these different things. So we now rely heavily, obviously, on the whole EC setup. But once you're through that and gotten your head around the way that works, this is really neat. So going forward, takes away a lot of headache with mapping from the old version of mapping from onboarding to EC. Right. So just let's see. Nothing happened there. I need to click again. There you go. Just highlighting the tasks that you now can set up with the program, or what we used to know as the new hire activities, manage activities. So we still have the welcome message. Much of this looks like what you know from previously. So none of what you can do in effect is different. It's just more, it's more the way that you do it is a bit different now. So so again, it's tighter integrated to the rest of the system. We don't have as many limitations when it comes to the goal setting integration. So so if that's something that we've been kind of looking forward to as well. So so it's a bit more open and more useful, it seems, going forward from here. Okay, just want to show you. So this is the new tool for mapping. This is the one that's kind of taking over for the the other mapping tools that we know from Onboarding 1. So this is the recruit to hire data mapping. So you'd see all the relevant and accessible EC sections on the left-hand side all the way down. This has been cut, so you don't see everything out there at the moment. But then you simply just tab into the different sections, and then you have your available fields, and you choose from which recruiting template you want to map. So this rounds up all the different fields that's available on the different templates that you use. So if you use multiple templates for different parts of the business, multiple requisitions, multiple application forms, and multiple offer approvals, this comes down to becoming like you can choose either to map from requisition, either to map from that offer of approval or the application. So it kind of rounds up all the different choices that you have, which also then means that the system kind of relies on having maybe a more unified way of defining the fields in recruitment. But that's something I'm going to touch on a bit later as well. But rather nice tool, really easy and intuitive to use. And we have a few validation touch points here as well. So once you set something up here, you validate and save. That's the first validation. If that checks out, then all good, you can move ahead. If not, you're not allowed to save. So you need to map at least what's required. So everything marked with this red star here needs to be mapped in each of the sections. And what will become required or set as required or mandatory here, that is defined in the data model. So so again, we kind of then rely on the Employee Central data model at the moment for this. Right. So moving on from this to talk a bit about what's not really there yet, and what are we looking forward to seeing in the product in the future. So what's on the roadmap? Some of the highlights here. I haven't taken everything here on the slides here, but just to highlight the ones that I feel is really important. So for the compliance functionality, we don't have any of that in the module at present. This is something that will be added through the year. We have biannual releases, so we'll get some of it potentially. We don't know for certain, but we are expecting some of the compliance functionality to be there with the next release. That will be in April, May 2020, and the rest, if everything plays out right, should be in by the end of the year of 2020. And the way that I have seen it described and mentioned on the roadmap from SuccessFactors is that we can expect the US and Canadian stuff that's the most advanced compliance content that we have, and the compliance integration that we have, to be one of the things that we unfortunately need to wait until the end of the year to see in the system. So that kind of covers, yeah, as I mentioned here, the P45, the different tax forms, the E-Verify bit, I-9, and all of that. So that's something to look out for and take note of. Reporting capabilities, that was something that we did expect, obviously, from the beginning, but unfortunately, for some, development purposes or reasons, the Analytics Cloud Embedded Edition was delayed a bit. seems to now be on the map for the next release. So again, that is April, May, and all the reporting in Onboarding 2 relies on this tool. So right now, it's really difficult to do any reporting that makes sense for the Onboarding 2 module. But come next release, that should hopefully all be sorted, and something we are obviously looking forward to, as yeah, that's something everybody's looking for having. Yeah, then we again, something that we were looking forward to, and that will be there in the future, but it's not a huge thing, but still just something to point out. So the new version of Onboarding, we're supposed to just be able to kind of use the basis of the same types of data objects and structures and things that we know from Employee Central and Foundation. So that's Foundation objects and then general objects and MDF objects. At the moment, when we can use some of these in recruiting directly, but unfortunately at the moment the mapping from recruiting to onboarding is not working with objects directly. We still need to do a bit of a workaround to get this working, but we can do that, and it's something that we've been used to do with Onboarding 1 anyway, so it's not a huge issue, but still just something that we were looking forward to, maybe not having to do the workaround where we copy external codes into text fields to then map them through and then have them show correctly in EC, to kind of get rid of that, be able to not do those business rules and things, but for a little while more we need to do this. It's been working, they are working on it, but again, something for the near future. Yeah, looking forward to, again, full language support for all the EC countries. That is also on the roadmap. At present, we have, I think it's 14, as I say here, 14 or 18 languages supported at the moment, which means that, all the standard stuff that you see when you just turn on the module and everything, all the screens that you have, they are translated into these 14 or 18 languages at the moment, and they keep on adding more and more language packs to the system. So, until we get up to the full number that's supported by EC, and then onwards, that new language in EC, then the onboarding bit will just be included in that, as I understand it. So that's going to be really, really nice. Oh, we've been there. So mobile app support, we don't have a native app support for the new version of onboarding yet. It's on the drawing board. It's something that's been looking into, how to and if they want to do it from SuccessFactors side. But on the positive side, everything is responsive designed, meaning that it re-renders based on the device you're using to view the system, right? So if you access the system from a browser, that be from a laptop, that be from any mobile device that with a web browser, if you access it from there, it will be showing as responsive design. So you should be able to get through virtually any of the workflows and do all the different signings and all of that through there anyway. So that's kind of the way forward at the moment. But we are keeping an eye out to see if we will get something as part of the native app in the future as well. Looking forward to better integration directly from onboarding with the external onboarding users into LMS and JAM at the moment. Again, it's something that's been being worked on at the moment. It's not there just yet. So right now there is a workaround for this, but it will mean any workaround we do will mean that the users that we bring in from onboarding 2 into Suite will need to kind of log in again when they need to, and then access any of these 2 systems yeah, so that's a bit unfortunate, as we would like you know, a tighter integration to LMS at least, and potentially also Jam for any like social onboarding experience that we're looking for building. Global assignment, concurrent employment, and all that is not yet supported, but again on the roadmap. So looking forward to seeing all of these concepts being implemented into the product as well. Qualtrics, again, something that's not fully integrated yet. It's a product that's there. It comes with a separate license, so it's something that that you need to license separately, but something to look out for and potentially look into for using with for surveys and those types of things that can be tied to an onboarding process or similar. Right. So a few bullets, a few words on actual thinking when thinking about the actual migration of going from onboarding 1 to onboarding 2. Obviously, one of the key things is to have a think about, so which features are we actually using today with success? Which ones might we have implemented but are not using, or seems to be, you know, not great at the moment, or whatever? Which ones can we potentially live without, and then need to do a match with, you know, the functionality that we know that we have in onboarding 2 at the moment versus what you are actually using in the current state and the current version of onboarding. That's a given. That's obviously the first thing to do. That's a match of where are you, what are you using, what functionality are you looking for, and what can the onboarding 2 product actually offer at this point in time. SuccessFactors aiming for full functionality parity by the end of the year, and they still stick with this. Obviously, it's on its roadmap stuff, so it can change, but at present it still looks like they are aiming for you know, keeping that promise. So we're just looking forward to seeing that. So the good and the cool thing about that is that, yes, then hopefully by the end of 2020 we'll have full parity with all the functionality that we know from onboarding 1 and then some, because we already now have improved features and new features in the new version of onboarding. So so that's going to be a huge day when once we get around to that. For those of you who are using onboarding 1 and successfully using onboarding in any of the countries and regions where you have compliance forms and panels, as you know it from onboarding 1, SuccessFactors does mention that we should have an option to do a hybrid setup where you run onboarding 1 in parallel to onboarding 2. So you can have onboarding 2 installed and set up for the global process, if you will. Usually we had that split, we would see that split in the processes in onboarding 1 between a global process and something else, which usually would be US, Canada-ish, and the rest of the world, or there could be even more different processes defined depending on requirements. But that is a potential option, a possibility. But again, it's not a clear recommendation because it will become complex, and it is a new product, onboarding 2, and having both 1 and 2 run in parallel on the same system. It's just seen from my side of the whole thing as a technical person and a previous developer and things. I can just foresee that, you know, that can potentially cause issues. Also issues that you know, they don't know about on the SuccessFactors side yet. So meaning it will be a quite complex project to potentially get that up and running. But again, the foundation is there, and yeah, it should be doable. But it's yeah, we don't have any. I don't have knowledge of any running systems where this has been set up successfully, and even tried setting up. So still that's something to be seen for the future. A bit more on this. So migrating to onboarding will mean revisiting a few other things in the system that you may already have there. So as of now, Employee Central is a prerequisite. If you don't have Employee Central, you can't do onboarding too at the moment. So that kind of disqualifies a group of companies. But again, for the most people here, I would guess that that's not the case, that most of you would already have Employee Central or have plans to get Employee Central. But it is a prerequisite. Data needs to flow somewhere at the end of the onboarding process, and that flows into Employee Central at the moment. It's on the roadmap to offer the option of implementing this and using another HRIS out there and integrating to that. And so that will be something that will be coming sometime during 2020 as well. But we need to revisit that, and we need to potentially revisit recruiting or any other kind of third-party applicant tracking system that you may be using at present. And the reason for this is obviously a change in the way that we define the data, the fields that we want captured and filled in and checked and all that during the onboarding process. And also the way that we trigger, the way we start the actual onboarding process. There's not that, I mean, there might be a few things to think about when going from onboarding 1 to 2, if you already are running recruiting. It's not that much of a difference. It mostly has to do with aligning of templates at the moment. So there can be some things there, because if you already are running onboarding 1, you would have done some of the workarounds that I mentioned earlier, and copying things from objects to text fields to be able to map that would already be in place. So not much needs to be changed there. It's more for the third-party applicant tracking systems that potentially is like a new integration, basically. So you may need to revisit however that was set up. So if you have had an applicant tracking system integrating to onboarding 1, that needs changing with the new version. We do have an API in place at the moment for this. So documentation's there, should be doable. I haven't done it myself yet, but again, should be definitely be doable. So it's just something that kind of needs to be done. Employee Central, that's a kind of a bit of a different story. As the new version of onboarding relies that heavily on the Employee Central data model, also known as the succession data model, because that kind of gives us the whole structure of the data that we want to capture through the process. In onboarding 1, we had panels. We kind of were free. We had like ability to just define panels with fields, and however we not completely free, but we could define what was on the panels. How should the panels look? Text there, labeling. Is it a drop down? Is it not a drop down? Is it whatever? So we had a bit of a wiggle room there to actually do some things with data that is now might not be limited as such, but is still tied to the EC data models, meaning that if we need something in onboarding that we don't have in EC at the moment, that needs to be revisited to see. So how should that then be implemented with the new version of onboarding? Should that sit with EC in the future? Is it something that we can stick in some section that we have in EC as a standard section, as something there? So that can be built into the data model, or does it need to be part of the process where we collect custom data in the onboarding process? So that's something that needs to be revisited. Also, what's required for onboarding a person can differ from what's required when actually hiring a person at the other end of the system. So one thing is going into the onboarding process in the beginning. So what needs to be checked and filled in by the person, the HR function in the company, going from recruitment into onboarding in the beginning. Then we need to add on to that what do we then need from the new hire to be added on to that. So that's the onboardee. And then at the other end, we then have the new hire or the hiring wizard, the manage pending hires bit, where we process people through that, and then you become an easy user. So that's what I've outlined here. So looking into layering of the data model. So at present, if you haven't dealt with concurrent employment and, oops, sorry, that wasn't on purpose. So where did I go to this? Wrong way. Come again. Oops. There you go. So we have, I mentioned here layering of the data model. So we're looking for maybe potentially like peeling back the mandatory bits and pieces of the basic succession data model of Employee Central for onboarding use, and then building on top of that with what we now have as person types. And we have 2 of these with onboarding. We've had the person type employee for a while. That was created, I think, with Concurrent Employment in Employee Central. But now we also have, excuse me, the person type onboardee. Anything defined for the onboardee as being mandatory for the onboardee needs to be filled in by the onboardee in the onboarding process. The other bit here, that's for EC. So that's for when you do a new hire, or when you then in the end process people through the manage pending hires bit. So that's defined there, which means that we now have like a 3-piece layering of, or a possibility to layer the data model into 3 different layers, becoming more and more restrictive as needed. So that's one thing to think about, and potentially a bit of a rework and rethink of some of these concepts. We also use role-based permissions in the new version of onboarding, which means that usually when you are running a live system, you would have set up governance around how to govern all the groups and permission roles that's been set up for the various modules that you already are running. And we would need to add on to that. So we have specific roles and groups that needs to be there for onboarding to work and run, and potentially need to add permissions into already existing roles that you're using for managers, HR people, and the likes. So again, a bit of just a thing to have on the radar when thinking about migrating. So that's a piece that needs to be revisited as well. Business rules is another thing where you typically would have some sort of governance around, who can change, what is changed, and do they have any impact on other parts of the system than the apparent ones. So we do, when enabling onboarding 2, a set of needed system business rules will be created automatically. So that will become part of the business rule setup automatically. But then on top of that, we need, for the process or for the onboarding module to work, we need to create a bunch of like custom business rules for that purpose. So obviously that is added onto the list of already existing business rules, as well as potentially adding in a few things when looking into triggering cross-boardings and terminations based on whether or not you have actually used those concepts prior to maybe migrating to this new product here. And then if you are capturing anything that needs signature, you rely on people to upload any documents through that document flow process that we have at the end, or the custom collection piece in the process, then we need the document management enabled. It can also integrate to outside systems. But the native one is document management, and that can become a piece as well. Just to have a look at, so does that have any impact on anything if you don't have a document management system that we are able to integrate to from onboarding at this point. For recruiting, yeah, I just touched on this already. So when running one already, you don't need to change that much. It's mostly redoing the mapping. So revisiting the whole mapping piece. That's quite important, obviously, to get that whole thing working again, as things will be shifting around a bit, and the tool and the system is able to pick up on some of it automatically, but everything needs to be checked and retested just to be verified that it is actually working as you intended to work when you turn on the new module. And then the third-party applicant tracking bits, that is, API available, all there. I do know of people who've tried and tested this out, and it seems to be working after a bit of fiddling with it. But yeah, we do have features there that allows us to create an external onboarding user, populate that user with basic information that you would normally see coming in from recruitment or an applicant tracking system of other sorts, and then initiating the process. And after that, we have pushed in the data, we kick off the process in onboarding, and then onboarding kind of takes over, and then all the same process will then kick in. So you'd be reviewing the data and pushing it on to the onboardee themselves, and that whole process will become the same going on from there. So that is kind of the that is the overview. I have a few more slides at the end here that's just showing more the official roadmap of what's to come in first half of 2020 if everything plays out right. One thing to mention, we do have Docusign integration. It's not embedded yet, so we're looking forward to that. To have that as part of the system. So at the moment, Docusign can only happen remotely, meaning that that whole process takes place like through emails and on the Docusign system. But in the future, that should be embedded as well, meaning that you should be able to do some of the signing and have a to-do tile to take you to Docusign and do the signing there. There's a click to sign version already installed, so that can be done embedded in the system. So you do have an alternate solution. Again, just want to mention Docusign, that's a separate licensed product. And the click to sign, that is a built-in version. So yeah, we are coming up to the end of this. So anybody left on here, I just want to say thank you so much for listening in.